Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? Hi. Can everyone see me? Come forward. Don't be shy. Come on. Come forward. Come forward. There's some space around here as well. Some seats here. Come on. Come forward. Don't be shy. Manib, come on. Lead the charge. Really? Do I actually physically have to pull you to come forward? Come on, guys. There we go. There we go. There's plenty of space around here as well. Everyone's standing. So. Can everyone hear me okay, particularly at the back? You're nodding. You can hear me. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you very much for coming. Wonderful turnout, particularly on a Tuesday. Sort of the expectations in my head were around 30, maybe 40. So actually, the fact that we've got about 80, 90 here is just fantastic. Probably due to the panel, I'd like to think it would be down to me, but no, it's not. Listen, I think this is the perfect opportunity to really kind of introduce what we're trying to do with Krowd, but also introduce why we work with such esteemed partners. I might just start by maybe giving you like a 30-second synopsis of kind of why we're here and what we want to achieve from today, but also just to give you guys an understanding of actually what we want to get out of it as well. And it's all about participation. So when we say afterwards, oh, does anyone have a question? If no one puts their hand up, I will literally put a microphone under your nose and you'll have to come up with a question. So I would suggest you've got one at least, okay? My name is Matt Ford. I'm the Business Development Director for Krowd. Those that have the jazzy gilets, you might see them. There's Omar, who's one of our co-founders. You have Bilal, who's just at the back as well. Brett, who's the most stylish here, does not have his gilet on. We'll deal with that afterwards, Brett. Victoria's here, Johnny's here, and a few others. What we're trying to do with Krowd is we're trying to be almost disrupt the CLO space. And when people talk about CLO, they talk about card-linked offers, right? Which 3 years ago, when we came out of the pandemic, it was a dirty word. We don't discount, we don't reward, we don't do incentives, we don't do this. Well, actually, let's change the narrative. Everyone does, okay? You could be Nobu, you could be Zuma, you could be Hawksmoor. You're all here. So the point is you're here because you want incremental spend. You want to go after first-time diners, but also, if we're honest, we think about where F&B is at the moment and hospitality and where we find ourselves. It's tough, right? Okay, there's no beating around the bush. The first thing to go normally when things aren't so good is market and spend. I've been there from my time at Hawksmoor, particularly at Gaucho as well. It's difficult, and what we want to do and what I'd like to get across today is how we can be an extension of your marketing plans through CLO, okay? Now, we work with the amazing American Express, lots of other partners and publishers that we also work with as well. But what we have here is an amazing panel of people that we work with or people that are currently working with Krowd or those that have integrations or APIs or even just those that actually just have been around for quite a while. Kevin, looking at you. Last minute substitution, by the way, slotted in quite nicely. So what I'd like to do maybe is if I just get the panel to introduce yourselves and maybe start with you, Michael, and then we can and then we'll crack on.
Sure, thank you very much. So for those who don't know me, my name is Michael Egdell. I work at TISSL. We own an EPOS company up in Milton Keynes. And I've been with the company for about 2 years now, looking after the product. I have worked with a lot of different departments, whether that be the development team, investing and doing innovation to make our software always up to date and adding value to our customers, or it's with the sales guys doing a bit of product positioning and making sure they really know the value that the product's bringing, again, to our customers. That's what I do on a daily basis, and thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much for coming. Who else?
I'm Kevin Goodman. I came up through the industry, basically, where all of you guys work currently or have in the past or whatever. But for the last 12 years, it's my anniversary today. I've worked for OpenTable, starting as an operator with OT and then I now run the sales team and account management team for essentially Europe when it comes to enterprise or any groups and hotels out there. So that's me, and thank you for having me as well.
Lovely. Who are you, sir? Hi, buddy.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, mate.
I'm Alex Graysmith. I'm head of reservations for Gaucho. Was head of reservations for Gaucho.
Absolutely
I'm
not.
at
No.
wow.
No.
Kicking it off.
It's all right. We basically have the same CV, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine.
So I've been at Hawksmoor for 4.5 years. I'm head of reservations for the global group. But before that, I was at Gaucho for 4 years as head of group reservations.
You can see where he slipped up there.
So that's me.
Hello, I'm Kat Schofield. I'm the head of sales and marketing at Gusto Italian. I've just been there for just over a year now, but always worked in the industry, Marston's, Greene King, Revs, a little bit of everything. But yeah,
all the cool spots, right?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Stephen Powell, original founder for Acteol, CRM. So we work in CRM space, single customer view. So we just love data. So whenever we start the journey, we start with one big empty database with nothing in it. And then we connect all these guys to go and collect their data and organize it and service it and do clever stuff and probably the stuff we're talking about today.
That sounds awesome. Right, listen, we're just going to crack on. We'll get straight into it. I've got lots of questions, and I'm hoping you guys have got questions as well. So listen, here we go. Ready? Alex and Kat, how are brands in hospitality leveraging data-driven loyalty programs to better understand and engage with their customers? And can you both provide examples of innovative ways that Hawksmoor and Gusto are using technology in this way? Very long question. Sorry. We've got a hooky mic.
Hello. There you go. So when I first joined Gusto, it was the first brand that I worked on that were really invested in loyalty in terms of we had Gold Club that was live for our guests that was really well received, but what we quickly realised is that loyalty in hospitality was a super kind of oversaturated market, and everyone was trying to do the same thing, so everyone was making it really overcomplicated. Everyone was trying to, get their guests to jump through hoops, and we wanted to do something a little bit differently. So one of the sales challenges that we had in place was really driving covers to our out-of-city restaurants, in our neighbourhood restaurants. And the way that we have kind of overcome this is launching Platinum Club, which is still have Gold Club in place, but actually Platinum Club has derived out of data, so out of feed it back data, telling our guests us they want better value for money, out of our CRM Atrimo data, and ultimately we realised that we could provide a discount for our guests and that they would be willing to pay for that through a kind of subscription model. So our guests can pay annually or monthly, and in return they receive 40% off food when they dine with us outside of the core weekend. So really simple offer, no kind of complications. It is what it says on the tin, and actually it's been really well received. It's early days for us. We're in about week 8 of the scheme, but it's been really well received by our guests so far.
Great, and because obviously I know a little bit about Hawksmoor, you operate a little bit differently from a loyalty perspective, right?
Yeah, 100%. So at Hawksmoor, we don't have like a loyalty scheme per se. We're kind of invested at the moment in like stealth loyalty. So we're working with a brilliant data platform called TISSL. Jerry's here today. We've been working for them.
Hi, Jerry. Shout out to
year.
Jerry. There's probably going to be a lot of shout outs today for people that are here. So.
And we were wanting to build this really sort of complex single customer view, taking all of the data from all our various data points, and then building a really quite a big framework of a customer profile. Mm-hmm. And then we're really empowering our teams in the restaurant to use that data more for surprise and delight. So when people are coming into the restaurants, they've got this really in-depth profile of all of their sort of the cadence, the day parts they normally come. Matt, you might come once a month on a Sunday for a roast, and it's looking at that data and saying, how can we utilise this to actually kind of push those customers to come with us a bit more regularly, but maybe for something that they wouldn't normally. So if we know that you're coming in every Sunday, we might talk to you on your 3rd or 4th visit on a Sunday and say, why don't you come in during the week and try the express menu, and I'll chuck in a couple of sides on us, and it would be great. And it's really just kind of nudging the dial and trying to get those people to become regulars.
Yeah, absolutely. Two very sort of different approaches to loyalty, and I think, but actually very, very efficient, and what works for you also works for Gusto as well. Okay, so taking all of that into consideration, thinking around AI, right? We've got to talk about AI at some point, don't we? And machine learning. Stephen and Kevin, how do you see personalised experiences and recommendations evolving in the restaurant industry at the moment? Kevin, if you want to start.
I think, I mean, it's easy to get wrapped up in, we think that the world's going to change the next day because something with AI is just suddenly going to change everything we're doing. The reality is that essentially we have been working with tools of these types now for many years. Throughout my time in OpenTable, I've seen a massive change in that regard, and that's certainly been accelerated massively since the pandemic as well. And so we're seeing variations and iterations, and those things are moving more quickly, but they're essentially at the heart of it trying to achieve the same thing that we've always been trying to achieve, which is what these two guys have just illustrated so perfectly, is that idea of our customers are all on a journey, and they don't really know necessarily when they walk in the door somewhere whether it's going to become their next favorite spot, and it's kind of our job to do that. And where the AI and these kind of tools are really taking us is just enhancing that, right? So that customers are actually getting more of what they really like rather than just being bombarded with a host of choices. And I think if anything is going to happen in that space, that's probably, hopefully that's where it's going. So it's more curated.
Yeah. Stephen?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that machine learning's been around for a long while in terms of predictive analytics and working out when to engage someone. AI is helping accelerate that and spot smaller patterns in that. The balance then is not then over bombarding those customers. But I think it also goes back to a point earlier in that in terms of the amount of data we're connecting. We're all living bigger and bigger digital fingerprints about what we're doing, whether that's a Wi-Fi, a feedback, a booking, a loyalty scan, whatever it may be. We're all collecting, or single customer user systems are collecting more and more data. The first job is to organize that into the right structure format so we don't end up with 3 mats in the system and AI is trying to understand 3 mats in the system. So to start with, it's kind of the rubbish in, rubbish out. So making sure whatever machine learning, whatever AI we deploy, it's using good data to make the decisions. And then if we can do that, then it does, as Kevin said, accelerates some of that journey in terms of looking at all the data we've got in terms of how often does Matt visit, what does he buy, how much does he spend, and how do we influence that visit?
I guess it goes back to that question of how much data is enough, right? And it's all well and good having all this amazing information, but actually what do you do with it, right? And I think you alluded to it there. It's like, well, actually, we know that you come in and that's your favourite time and date that you come in. And actually, normally, if we want to, we go, actually, you have that bottle of wine. Whereas, from your perspective, Kat, you're kind of going, well, actually, we want frequency of visit because they come and they enjoy themselves. But that may not be the key goal. Yes, of course, you want people to come back. But actually, what you want people to do is kind of go, God, Hawksmoor really looked after me. In a different way, right? I guess, kind of.
It feels like just having those simple nudges. So, of course, we rely on the team to give an amazing experience in restaurant, but actually, how can we then stay forefront of our guest's mind? And we want to drive repeat visit, but we also want to stay forefront of mind for an experience. So, for example, through our CRM journey, we might pick up that a guest has enjoyed a steak with us, and we'll then prompt them in a few weeks' time to come and try our steak journey, which they might not have known that we had available in our restaurants. So I guess it's approaching it from both ways.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, the AI is great and thinking about it from a CRM perspective, but I think Alex mentioned it as well, is how do we build those relationships online and offline as well? So how does once we understand the data and we can understand the segmentation from that, how do we operationalize that data so that the people in restaurant can understand the guests before they come in and add value during the journey? So it becomes the combination of the online and the offline, and how do we stitch those two things together?
Yeah. Thank you. Michael, you're going to join the party in a minute, I promise you. There's a question here for you, but there's one more before I get to you, I promise. I guess like the sort of the natural progression from that is the ethical conversation around how much data is enough and how much is being stored. So what are the ethical considerations surrounding the collection and use of customer data? And I'm obviously looking at Sales and Stephen here. In loyalty programs, and how can restaurants navigate these challenges? Steve.
I'll go first, no problem. Yeah, I think it's a value exchange at the start of it in terms of what's the customer giving you from information to get points or rewards or whatever back. So my notes will be, or when we give advice to brands, it's be transparent with it. Just take the data you need. Don't ask for everything. I mean, I've seen designs initially for schemes where there's 28 questions to sign up to loyalty, and I shared with Matt last week, with one brand, I can't remember it wasn't, it was a few years ago, and they wanted to ask someone's salary for coming into the loyalty scheme, which you can imagine, again, comes back to my question in terms of,
I'd love to play a guess game on that one.
But you got to think, who's going to answer it honestly, and again, comes to the rubbish in, rubbish out, and if you're putting that stuff in, what are you going to do with it? So be transparent, I think, in terms of that efficacy, in terms of why you're collecting data, how you're going to use it. But then equally with my GDPR hat on, to think about how long you're retaining that data. So if someone's not been in for whatever amount of time, making sure you've got those processes to remove the data and stop mailing them 10 years later. And hopefully that should all be in place anyway from GDPR coming in. And I think the last point I'd make is, again, comes back to the transparency piece in terms of preference centers and things like that. So show the customer what data you've collected on them. So don't hide it away. So go into it. They can see where their data's come from. They can see, update their balances, update their personal details, change their opt-in status. So just be open and honest with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just mostly echoing that. I mean, I work for one of the largest platforms in the world that collects data in that way. Anyone who is using our platform to essentially book a restaurant is essentially sharing their data with every single restaurant they've ever booked in their life. So, I mean, it is that idea of transparency. It is about the consolidation of messaging around what customers actually want to see, rather than just, Stephen was saying, bombarding them with everything. If you're transparent about it at the start of the journey, I don't know anyone that's going to be annoyed about a message that actually resonates with them. Yeah. Right? At the end of the day, the only things that piss you off are the ones that you're like, what? So, as long as you're using it correctly and you're transparent about the way you're collecting it, that's wholly ethical.
Nice. Thanks, chaps. Michael, how are you, sir?
Good, thank you.
There you go. Here's a question for you. How do you foresee the integrations with innovative brands like Krowd offering new and forward-thinking tech and shaping the future of dining experiences?
When I think about tech and dining, I really think about how far it's come in the last 15 or so years. You're seeing technologies such as, obviously, AI, machine learning. You're seeing augmented reality. You're seeing all these type of robotics. Things are coming into the dining experience where 15 years ago really felt like something you'd see in like the Back of the Future movie. Those type of things. But when you really want to look at what gives your business value is you really want to look at how these systems that you've got in your venue and in your site, how they can work collectively. So how can they work with each other? How can they benefit from each other? So, for example, obviously with like Krowd, you can have the loyalty scheme set up, but if you integrate it with a core part of your system like your EPOS stills, it's got access to really valuable data. So it will know things like your best sold products, it will know where the most sales are made in your different parts of your building. And you can build loyalty around that, you can build promotions around that, and you can help drive business and sales in the areas that you want to with that information through loyalty. And just taking another example of there with augmented reality, for example, you can have this amazing 3D rendered image of your menu like a burger. But to maintain that and have that managed on its own is a bit taxing, whereas if you integrate it, it's going to pull all your menu information directly from your EPOS again, for example. And it's going to pull across more information such as dietary information, your price, is it part of a combo deal, how many loyalty reward points is attached to it. And you can already see how much more value you're getting from the combination of these systems instead of using them together, instead of using them separately. So I think when it comes to integrations, I think it's really key to really look at what you've currently got and how they're working together, because integrating them is where you will find the most value.
Stephen, anything to add on that one?
No, I think the key point there is integration is the kind of the first note I had. So making sure us as tech partners have open APIs and we can consume the data, and making sure it's properly integrated so you've got that flow of the data. It comes back to kind of my first point in terms of we're all collecting more and more data, so how do we understand that, structure it, and then we can learn from it. And if you think across the changing ecosystem, which me and Michael touched on, is around not just the stuff in restaurant, but the way we're all interacting with brands. So where we're using Deliveroo and Uber Eats, Grubhub, all of those things are changing the way those digital ordering platforms are working, and how data, which you kind of maybe used to own as first-party data, is now third-party data. How does that all come together, and how do we respond to that and understand it and use it? And picking up the bit about Krowd, you certainly those integrations and creating, particularly in loyalty, with the frictionless way we can understand what a guest's doing. The more we can move the barriers, simplify it, the better. But key part is integration and understanding all the digital fingerprints and touch points.
Yeah. Thank you. So just sort of going on to that, and I'm sort of looking at Kat and Alex on this one. In what ways can restaurants utilize customer data to optimize things like menu offerings and pricing strategies, which are obviously key at the moment, particularly when you look at almost lost leaders that are, driving covers at lunchtime and such like, but also around marketing campaigns as well. I don't know if Alex or Kat, who'd like to go first?
I'll go.
There you go.
Yes, I've already touched upon, I guess, the value for money data that we're getting through and how we address that. But something else that we do quite successfully is simply an abandoned cart campaign. So it's worked really well for us over Christmas. So if our guests had come onto our website and viewed our menus, or maybe signed up to our database, etc., but then didn't proceed to make a booking, again, it's just about creating those prompts without being pushy. So we know that our guests will be looking at 4, 5, 6 other restaurants to come and dine with at Christmas. So it's just about sending them, where we can, a really tailored comms around maybe previous basket data that they've had with us, or food and drink that they've enjoyed with us in restaurant, or just a simple prompt to say, thank you for coming and have a look on our website, so that we're at the top of their inbox.
Yeah.
Wow.
Alex, anything to add?
Yeah. No, I was just thinking more about the sort of the data that we're collecting in restaurant. We don't tend to. I mean, that's an amazing journey that you just described there in terms of the website. It's not something that we've looked at the moment. But I'm just thinking in terms of identifying sort of our key day parts and our offerings. So one that springs to mind is obviously Sunday roast, massive at Hawksmoor. So we did a whole campaign last year which we called Roast 2.0, where we really upped our roast offering. That's when we introduced all our roast sides, did quite a targeted marketing campaign for that, because we knew that the demand is there, and the main aim was really to drive up the spend per head. And it was really successful, and most of those sides are still on the menu. And if you haven't had a Hawksmoor stuffing, you need to have a Hawksmoor stuffing.
I was going to say, it's nice to see your breakfast back as well. I got the mailer.
Oh, yeah.
Breakfast
comes back as well.
Michael, Kevin, Stephen, this is kind of for you, but bearing in mind, obviously, we've talked a lot around the blue chips and the bigger brands, but also the independents, which are just equally as important. How can smaller independent restaurants compete with the larger chains in terms of engaging with customers and implementing data-driven loyalty programs and technology solutions? There's a lot there. What I'm trying to say is, what can the independents do that it maybe don't have the budget, maybe still want to engage, but what can they do?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, there's pros and cons to being either or, right? Like, larger chains have huge budgets, or bigger budgets, certainly, in order to be able to do things. Independents don't, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily the end of the world, right? Because they're independent, they can move more quickly in response to data. And I think what the proliferation of sort of data in our world today means that you've got a ton of sources, not just the data that you're collecting through your own restaurant sort of source, but then reports, studies, works that yourselves are doing, for instance, like white papers you've produced, or similar things that OpenTable might do. Like, there's plenty of places you can go to find guidance and look for trends and that kind of stuff. And if you're independent, you have the advantage of being able to move quickly, test quickly, prove models, disprove models, and iterate, right? You can do that much faster. I like working in the enterprise space. That's where I've worked for the last 10 years. But the decision-making tree is fucking massive, right? So, like, you don't have that when you're in an independent. Yeah. So, although there is the disadvantage of necessarily not having the cash flow that a larger group might have, that shouldn't necessarily stop you from being even better in some respects.
Yeah, there's almost like a reactive nature, which is not a bad thing, right?
No.
Just being able to say, well, actually, we're going in that direction. Well, now we can go there.
Yeah.
I've been in that.
Yes.
It takes 6 months
Yep.
sometimes just to turn the steering wheel.
It does. And by that point, whatever trend you thought you were on is long gone. So.
Yeah, interesting. Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, expanding on the point you just made with how crucial it is and the smaller venues not having the bigger budgets and stuff, I think it just goes to show that not only do you have to be adaptive and quick and flexible, and you do have the space for that, which is an advantage, but you also really have to consider what tools you're using and how you put them to good use and the value you're going to get out of those again. So I think you have to be really picky in terms of the systems you're using, what role they fit, and what experience you want to give them to your customers to make sure they fit into the vision, but also allows to they're not so structurally in place and rigid where you can't swap and change them. So yeah, loyalty is a great one because it is adaptive. You can change it to tailor what parts of the business you do or don't want to promote. And data's a powerful tool. And as you say, I think everyone's in the mindset that data is accessible. I think gone are the days back when GDPR in 2017, when people worried about their data. Now everyone accepts it's out there. So just use it. Find your qualitative data, find your value in the data that you have, because they're two different things, and use it to your advantage, Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to go off piece a little bit here. It's not one of the questions that we studied previously. But just in terms of, from a CRM perspective, and I think I know the answer, but are restaurants maximising the opportunities? And it's a bit of a loaded question. We know they should be doing more, but actually, what percent of data is being collected from customers that are in Chotto for lunch today, for instance?
Every brand is slightly different. As a rule, we see from outside brands collecting loads of data, and then they still send the same email to everyone. Slightly annoying, given all the work we do to get it all segmented and structured. So there's probably whatever percentage is, 50-50, I don't know, but definitely more. And I think that's largely not done deliberately. I think largely it's a function of time and resource. So the tools are there for them to use, and to some degree the technology are more accessible than ever. In terms of creating digital wallets on the fly and posting those and updating loyalty balances are all far more accessible than before once it's all integrated. But the biggest thing we see is time. The person is either trying to do 6 different jobs at once and getting the email out at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon when they realise, shit, I haven't done it yet. And guess what? You don't get great results from that.
Plans for the weekend at 3 o'clock on a Friday.
It's too late. So definitely it's in the planning and part of our job to help them do that. But again, it comes back to the AI and machine learning and where we are time poor. How do we use automation to solve some of those things? As a rule, there's always more. But time is the main thing.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that, by the way. Let's talk a little bit around payments, and particularly payment technology, lots of EPOS opportunities out there. How have advancements in payment technology, such as digital wallets and contactless, influenced the way that restaurants interact with their customers? Maybe Michael, if you want to lead on that one.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can all agree that there's now like 1,000,001 ways you can pay for a meal. So I think what we're seeing is restaurants are becoming very picky with how their customers are paying for their meal and the technology they use behind it, because they know that it's part of the customer experience. Yes, it's maybe at the end, maybe not the end, if you're using other systems that engage the customer, the experience beyond being in the physical restaurant. But a payment is a key part of that experience, and you want that experience to match your vision and the overall experience of your restaurant. Take, for example, paying via an app on your phone to paying with someone with a human element. They're very different experiences for the same goal. And the technology used behind that can really help drive, how the customer feels in regards to it. I think that's. I think it's all about linking that payment process and just remembering that it's a part of the customer experience, and there's expectations that come with it as well.
Right. Stephen, maybe?
Yeah, similar comments. I mean, it's still part of the brand. It's still part of the old customer journey, and we all live in omni-channel world, so I think what we're seeing in If you take quick serve in terms of kiosks, who would have thought years ago we would have been scanning our own shopping in the supermarket or checking ourselves into flights. The way we're interacting is changing, but it's not for everyone. So the key thing, though, being up Michael's point, is it's still part of the brand journey. So the same effort has to go in understanding how does that work. Is it seamless? But recognizing one route, it doesn't work for everyone. So how do we maintain that and join the dots?
Striking that balance, isn't it? And actually, the brands I've worked with previously, that goodbye and that payment at the end was still very much part of the whole experience. Whereas from a QSR perspective, time is money, right? And it's a bums on seats, turn and burn mentality. If we think about where we are and certain aspects of hospitality, it's not for everyone, but I think the key thing I think you were trying to make there is actually there are solutions out there that will fit what you're trying to do from a service perspective within your brand. Which leads me nicely onto the question that I've literally just answered the question I'm about to ask. How can restaurants strike a balance between utilising technology to streamline operations? Really, I guess maybe Kat with this from a loyalty perspective within Gusto. What does that end journey look like from a customer's perspective?
Look, it's something we're still working on. And I think for us, you've already mentioned it, striking that balance, and really it's about technology should be kind of a silent partner for us. So it should be there to support, alleviate guest pain point, but still allow us to provide an amazing experience. So a simple way that we're doing that is through our booking platform process. So that should be as automated as possible. We should have instant responses to inquiries to ensure that guests are reassured that their booking is secured. And again, as you've mentioned, through loyalty, we want that to be a fully automated process to ensure that guests that are dining with us don't need to remember to try and find their card and flag down a team member. And, it just all happens from the moment that they book to the moment they leave. It's looked after for them.
Lovely. Alex?
Yeah, I think for us, more from maybe a reservations perspective, we're certainly looking at AI as a solution when it comes to reservations at the moment, and how we can utilize AI in the customer journey to really free up the labor for the reservations teams to be dealing with the customers that actually need that human touch and interaction. So there's various platforms out there at the moment, but I think with AI especially, if you're under the impression that you want to utilize it alongside the customer journey and within the interaction, so that you're not taking away essentially. You just want to kind of offload some of those really sort of minor general inquiries, FAQs, the stuff that's going to take time to deal with, but as long as the customer finds the information, then they're still going to be happy.
Lovely. Any more to add?
Well, I was going to say, we actually, 8 years ago, we conducted a survey in the US, as it was at the time. I mean, different dining market and different consumer expectations for sure. But even back then, the highest pain point that was noted by pretty much every diner was the payment. That had a lovely meal, that had a great time, that just wanted to pay their bill and take their loved one home, or they wanted to go do whatever they had planned next. And that was the biggest pain point even then.
I have to say, when I want to pay, I want to go. I'm done.
That's it.
And it's a mindset thing, right? I'm like, okay, happy days. It was wonderful. Off I go.
And it's different.
Jane hates it, but
normally
she's still sipping a glass of wine. I'm like, right, Bill, I'm done. Let's go.
Different consumers as well, right? Like if I'm dining by myself, like I'll order the bill when I'm get delivered my main course. So right, so as soon as I'm finished with my steak or whatever, I can just get up and go, right? Like I know I'm done at that point. But not everyone's like that. No, consumers should lead on that, really.
Yeah. This is open to everybody, and we'll open the floor up. And we're on time, Johnny. You're happy with time? Okay, good. What are the emerging trends and technologies in the restaurant industry that have the potential to revolutionise customer engagement and customer experience? There's apps and Amble and such like, but maybe let's start with you guys, because obviously you're probably utilising it, and then from a development perspective, we'll speak to you guys after. But just to put you on the spot, what apps are you using? What technology? How are you enhancing the customer experience in the restaurants?
Yeah, I can start because I think with Hawksmoor, we, as you would know, Matt, we're kind of we've been a little bit hesitant to explore apps, and it goes back to the sort of the discussion we've been having about payments and that being part of the journey. But we are exploring payment options. One of the things that we've realised that we need to sort of focus on this year is speed of service. How can we just kind of speed our service up? That's what the consumer wants. That's what the customers are wanting. And again, payment, yeah, when you want to pay, you want to get out. You don't want to be sitting there waiting for the bill for 20 minutes. So we are in looking at apps for that sort of market at the moment. But that's really it when it comes to sort of new technology in restaurant.
Yeah, we've toyed with apps and how relevant they still are, I guess, for our guests. But something that we are using currently is Apple Pay, just really simple. If your loyalty card appears in your wallet and you're off searching for something else, then hopefully it'll provide that prompt to come and visit us. A couple of other things, I guess, would be ChatGPT from a guest communication perspective. If someone messages us and asks if they can book a table, we could get an instant reply to that. It's not something we're doing yet, but it's something that we're looking to explore this year. But also just something as simple as kind of gamification of our loyalty program. So actually, we want to keep our guests engaged. It's not that difficult. Just make it fun.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Kevin, you want to?
Well, yeah, I was just going to agree. Like the gamification piece is just so key, right? Like the more you can make people feel like they're just having fun, the more they're going to dip in all the time. And yeah, I mean, I think obviously the OpenTable app is kind of a bit of a monolith, but it started so long ago that at the time there wasn't such a thing really. And I suppose what we've seen in the market is apps require so much investment and so much time and effort. And once you start down that pathway, then you're only going to try and build more functionality. It's rare that you have the vision like you guys have where just keep it very simple. You're going to get so many people saying, well, let's add this and let's add this. And before you know it, what's the app for it, right? Exactly. So it's cautious, but it can be hugely beneficial. It certainly has benefited OpenTable.
So almost the Nando's app, and then the McDonald's app that became a monopoly board.
Yeah.
And you forget why you're buying a burger. Michael, do you want to add to that? From a product perspective?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very product-y answer for anyone who's worked with anyone in product
I fully expect
before.
that, mate. Go on, tell us. It's all good.
But yeah, we don't like to, the way we look at it and the way we work with our customers is we don't like to solutionize anything. And what that essentially means is we don't look at the latest bit of technology and say, how can we use that? What we do is we look at the problems and the spaces our customers are trying to fill, and we think what technology is best suited for that, regardless of if it's AI, if it's machine learning, if it's robotics, if it's a loyalty program, anything like that. So for me and for us, when we work with our customers, what's really revolutionizing the industry isn't the technology itself, it's the use of technology and how they put that, to make it a value for them. And, what's revolutionary for one part of the industry is different and revolutionary for another part of the industry. So that's kind of the angle we come into it. But obviously that does mean you have to have an understanding of the technology out there and play to their advantages.
Lovely. Any more on that one?
No, I think it's sad. The gamification is key and how that we're seeing that come in, but increasingly then with that gamification as well as it's not taking loyalty from beyond just spend £10 and get 10p or whatever. It's how do you join some of those things together? So try these 4 gins and get this or whatever it may be. So how do you create those connected events that engage people beyond just the transaction, getting points or stamps? I think some of the other bits of tech in terms of how that's affecting engagement would be from a slightly different angle. How's AI, coming back to that word again, how's AI helping review all your guest feedback to understand what can you do to improve operationalization? So how do you get smarter, understand the volume of comments that you can connect, whether that's from your Google reviews or direct feedback? How do you understand that sheer volume and decipher it? And then probably again picking up some of the tech mentioned here in terms of how do you understand the tech that's out there to understand wait time. So how long is a plate on the hot plate? How long is someone waiting at front of the house? There's tech out that can help drive some of that stuff and feed that back into the whole operational side of things.
Thanks, mate. Did you just literally read my next question?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Alex, Kat, how can brands like Hawksmoor and Gaucho leverage social for online reviews? No, it's key, right? Particularly from an insights perspective. How far do you, and I think I know the answer with you, Hawksmoor, how far do you drill down on reviews, whether it be TripAdvisor? Is it a Monday morning 3-hour session?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yes. Is the answer.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Kat, what about you?
No, we report daily, weekly, and monthly on all of our feedback. And actually, interesting that you mentioned AI, because ChatGPT has been amazing to analyze all that data. You can run it through, and you can really kind of spit out a table of sentiment trends. So we can identify exactly what areas are the key topics, which is mainly how we know that we need to focus on speed of service. That's kind of one of the biggest things that's been coming up in all of our customer feedback. And
these are genuinely actionable, right? They're not. It's not fluff, and as in could be quicker. Could
Yeah, it's genuinely actionable, and you can
and they're genuinely actionable. Okay.
Yeah, and just identifying and what we can do with that. So we're all over our customer feedback. Right. It's a massive part of it's a massive part of Hawksmoor, massive part of my role. Really, how we can turn all of that qualitative feedback into quantitative actionable data.
And I guess, is AI helping with getting rid of the dirty side, right? Because there is a dirty side to reviews. Does it filter that out, or is it still there?
You can filter that out as well. Yeah. I mean, the volume of reviews that we get on a month is up there. So it's about, like 5,000 or so.
Kev, you might have something to say on reviews?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, that's to your last point there, like the volume of reviews now, the very fact that something like ChatGPT or tools that are similar to that allow you to actually take that and turn it into something that isn't just an anecdotal sentiment that everyone feels and is actually, as you say, no, this is what people are saying, and they're saying it at volume, and they've been saying it for a while, we just didn't pick up on it. And all of a sudden, it highlights all of those kind of trends that you can see. I mean, and we're thinking along similar lines, like the idea that not only would you be able to, use tools like that to go through all of that. Obviously, we have our own review platform which is used extensively, but also then how, if you can use machine learning to look at that data, can you also then look at machine learning as to how is best to respond? And what responses will actually generate the best reaction from a guest or a consumer, whether it be that they've left a negative review and you want to pull them back into the business, or whether they just overwhelmingly have been positive and you want to continue that journey to regular, all of that kind of stuff. Like, can we be using that to then write the perfect review? Yeah. Right? The human element needs to be in there, but that's also really just machine learning.
Yeah, it's that fine balance, isn't it? Actually genuinely receiving something that looks genuine, has been sent by the general manager, and having done my time, I know that the GMs probably do that, but there are also businesses out there that maybe don't have the resource to do it, maybe an independent, where they can utilize that AI learning. So
absolutely,
it's having the trust, right?
You could take it to the absolute extreme, right? If you've got a group somewhere, around the thousands of sites. Yeah. Well, a lot of the time there's still a single marketing team, right? That's trying to deal with thousands of sites, probably lower volumes of reviews, but still it's the same problem, just on a macro scale.
Speaking of team, all three of them are staring at me because I've run over. It's 1:33. That's not bad. We'd like to open it up. I want to say thank you very much. We'll go through a proper thank you in a minute, but as I said, I will give someone the microphone. I'm thinking here. There we go. There's a question.
I'd love to know the most underrated piece of your tech stack that kind of helps you to connect up in restaurant experience with a return visit, or they're kind of on that journey.
Tech.
Yeah, something that's really impactful, but perhaps people in this room may not have heard of.
I don't know if it's underrated or not, but just wireless social, for example, utilising, like a lot of our guests that come and visit us will want Wi-Fi, right? So even if they haven't signed up to our database, or even if they're not on our loyalty scheme, that is just a way to catch the rest of the guests and ensure that we have got their data and also understand the demographic and can target them accordingly.
I think from the Acteol side, it's something I touched on earlier, where we've got the data to see how often someone's coming, so who's a loyal, who's a frequent, who's occasional. Do they come at lunchtimes? Do they come at evenings, weekends? Do they have covers of 4, 6, 2, but still send the same email to everyone? So the tools are there, it's just how do we use them, and the difference you see in uptake is enormous. Just taking that extra 10 minutes to think about who am I sending to, what's the message, so you don't send the same message someone came yesterday, or even lunchtime today, and you said, fancy come back tomorrow, or whatever it might be.
Any more questions?
This is more for Kat and Alex, but based on the abandoned basket case and also your platinum membership, those kind of feel a bit like retail inspirations. Retail's obviously been way ahead of hospitality in their use of data, and we've seen it loads with Clubcard and Nectar and stuff. What other things that you can tell us are you planning on gaining inspiration from retail, and where else do you get your inspiration from?
It feels like both of those are bits that I mentioned, so I'll pick this up. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I believe that we are the first kind of premium casual dining brand to bring on a subscription-based membership. So yeah, absolutely. We took inspiration from supermarkets, from Pret, and we thought, let's give it a go and see if it works for us based on the data that we have to hand. In terms of next steps for us, it would be really streamlining the offers that we give to our guests. I'm sure if you're kind of like a Clubcard member or M&S, you get really specific vouchers based on your purchases. We do a little bit of that through CRM, but actually we could be way more specific and targeted in terms of, right, you love this wine? Okay, come and enjoy it for, 2 glasses and enjoy it with a friend for the price of 1 or something like that. So it feels like that's the next step for us.
Yeah, I think for us at Hawksmoor, the way that we're really approaching sort of that stealth loyalty, it's essentially an invisible loyalty scheme that we're trying to build, where it's empowering the teams in the restaurant to make those decisions. So it really isn't a retail model in my mind. I can't really think of anything else that's sort of similar, apart from that episode of The Bear. Where
Yes. Oh, the Bear's very
but that's really the direction that we want to go in with that project this year, and working with Jerry and Distill has really sort of been the key to unlocking all of that for us.
I think.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I think we could take guidance from retail, and I agree with you. We've seen a lot in the past 5 years come across, not only ideas but also professionals, right? There's a lot of people coming over from other industries into catering that we never saw before, and they're bringing with them a lot of knowledge. But I think the key to it is that at the heart of what we do is fundamentally different from most things. So it's not necessarily about copying or replicating. It's about iterating and changing and using. I mean, one of the things that we're working with Hawksmoor on, if you don't mind me mentioning, and with Jerry and Distill, is this idea of, like, in the restaurant operation, how do you deliver that self-loyalty? Well, the best way to do that is to empower your teams on the floor with very simple messaging about what it is that guest represents to the business. Right, whether they're a regular customer or whether they're someone who purchased something, the guest doesn't need to know that they're, necessarily what would be called a regular or whatever, but all of their needs are there for the operators at the door who, let's face it, turn over quite regularly. They're right there to say to them, this is this type of customer, right? And they're easily recognizable messages saying, and easily recognizable patterns and types of customers that can be reacted to. So it's an idea from retail, but I think just turned brilliantly into something that's very specific to the restaurant industry.
Hey, yeah, I've got a question regarding card-linked programs. It's for Alex and Kat. How does CRM via card linking stack up against your own sort of rewards program? Obviously having loyal customers that are engaging with campaigns. For the non-loyal, do you see card linking as an extension of that CRM program and sort of almost part of your wider CRM?
Yeah, I kind of see it as approaching from two different angles, so it feels like they work hand in hand with each other. So the work that we've done with Matt and the team, it just really opens up a whole new demographic that we wouldn't have access to anyway. Clearly, loyalty will always be a priority for us because we know that those guests will visit us more, spend more money with us, chat to their friends about us. However, there is, a whole market out there that, a lot of guests don't know about Gusto Italian, and we need to ensure that we're reaching almost like mirroring the database of the guests that we do have, but through the use of the work that we're doing with Krowd.
Yeah, I think with card linking programs, the access that you get to a different type of customer is really beneficial. So when you can do quite targeted campaigns on lapsed customers, or especially first-time diners for us, that's a real big draw for doing campaigns which we've run with Krowd and Amex in the past.
I think from the other side, from the CRM, where we run loyalty schemes that cover people can use apps to identify themselves, digital wallets or their link card. What's interesting is where we see customers coming in. We know they've been in because they've been on the Wi-Fi, booked a table. So I know they've been in the restaurant, but they didn't scan their wallet or their app or whatever it may be. What we find is where people have got the card linking, that percentage is a lot smaller. So it becomes that frictionless piece, and if it means we're tracking every single spend we're doing, we can create better comms to them and reward them appropriately. Otherwise, people have they got the receipt? Can I go and claim my points afterwards? It just becomes a lot easier. So we certainly see adoption of loyalty works really well, where you've got the card linking as part of the mix. Doesn't work for everyone, but when it's there, it works well.
Any more questions? Oh, sorry. Hello.
Yeah, another question for Kat and Alex. So if we're talking about in-venue data capture, thanks for the shout-out, Kat. Stephen mentioned the value exchange. What kind of tricks and tips do you have for communicating that exchange actually in venues? So whether it's the front-of-house team or POS, what do you use?
Well, one method is through wireless, so we can promote messaging that we can rotate on a monthly, weekly, daily basis if we want to. However, we do, I don't think printed comms are dead, and I think ultimately you're still sat at the table enjoying the whole experience, hopefully putting your phone away for an hour or so. So ultimately what we have up in restaurant, we try to execute it to a really premium standard, but guests are still there, and it is still your billboard to promote the messaging that you have. And then it's also, I guess, where we drive those guests to that are visiting us and that are using our Wi-Fi or our loyalty program. So we might segment the data. X guests we send off to our Instagram page. X guests we want to promote bottomless brunch to. This segment we want to promote our Sunday family offering. So I guess it's just about how and where we direct them to as well.
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of in-house collateral, we're just wanting to direct people to get onto our websites. We've got a lot of QR codes, get them onto our newsletter and database. And again, we've got wireless social at Hawksmoor, which has been amazing. Our database doubled in size overnight once we went live with that. It was incredible.
Anyone else got a question? Okay, one last question from Omar.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks everyone for coming, and thanks to the panel again for giving such good insights on the hospitality industry. I wanted to ask, how do you, and this is probably for Kat and Alex, sorry we keep asking Kat and Alex, but how do you benchmark, and just sort of generally, but also from a data perspective, so revenues, even review sentiment, for example, how you're doing compared to your competition, CRM, and so on and so forth. I mean, what do you use for benchmarking?
So we partnered with REMS last year, last year, and that's been quite eye-opening in terms of building out our competitor sets and being able to benchmark in our local areas in terms of revenue, turnover, covers, etc.
We obviously use the guys at Trimo Acteol to provide some benchmarking stats, but I guess outside of that would be Feed It Back. So we review, our teams review Feed It Back data on a daily basis, but from a central team we review it definitely once a week, and that provides us a real kind of holistic view of the industry and where we sit versus our competitors, from price point, product quality, service, etc. So that would be a key one for us.
Wonderful. Any more questions before we wrap up? Nope. Okay. Thank you so much. Genuinely, it's been fantastic. Actually, I've really enjoyed it. I've loved putting all the questions together. Appreciate you giving up your time. Wonder if we could just give everyone a round of applause. And really, just to sort of, here comes the salesy bit. I haven't done that yet. The sales team are here if you'd like to have a chat with us around incremental spend. Some of our publishers are here as well. We've got Airtime Rewards, BA Rewards, Hyperjar, Amex, American Express, Amex Dining, all part of the Krowd ecosystem. It's genuinely humbling to have you all here. I started with Krowd 2 and a bit years ago with an idea of being able to support hospitality in a way that I think we've come a very, very long way, and testament to the likes of Gusto and Hawksmoor and many other the brands that we work with that are in the room. There's a lot that needs to happen, particularly from an F&B perspective, and if we're able to be an extension of marketing platforms that you guys, or initiatives or campaigns that you want to run, or if you just want 90% incremental spend or first-time diners in your restaurant, come and have a chat with us, all right? Guys, thank you so much. There's more food coming. I'd like to thank the team at Chotto Matte for having us as well. Jane, she's here. But again, enjoy the food. It's coming out, and we'll get round and talk to you all in a bit. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you.